I've been looking forward to getting my buddy Kent on this podcast since I started it. Kent's been actually a listener, kind of critiquing what we're doing, and we were just talking about that. He's got some great ideas and stuff. He's
critiquing. I'm loving it.
He's critiquing it and loving it. That's okay. And Q, you listened a little bit to some of his past stuff and all that. What are you thinking, dude? Are we gonna go through this or what?
He's hey, listen, this is what I'm excited about. Like he's going to talk about his company for sure, but he definitely knows his stuff. He has a lot of as I call it's like a guru. He's a guru in his field, a
swami,
as you call it. Yeah. So I'm just excited for the mindset that he's going to give to us and some of the opportunity. Like, get ready for these nuggets, you guys, because he's going to come and lay it down on you all for real.
Absolutely, and I never really, when I think of entrepreneurs, I don't, my mind doesn't go to Hollywood. I don't think Hollywood entrepreneurs. Just for me, it doesn't. After meeting Kent, I don't know, it was 4 years ago, whatever, as we became friends, and I realized, boy, there's some serious entrepreneurship going on in that Hollywood market, and this guy has been a part of a lot of it. So it's I can't wait to hear the story and let him tell it. So let's just not waste any time and get right to it. Here's our buddy Kent Emmons from Hollywood, California.
Oh, please, no. Kent Emmons from Mount Carmel, Illinois. I will never claim Hollywood as home. Don't want any part of that one.
Even though you've been there for 2/3 of your life now, probably, right?
23 years.
Okay,
yeah.
about half.
Yeah, I'm 54, so yeah, more than I need to.
Right.
Although, I've always made sure that I've stayed out of California longer than I needed to not have to become a resident. I have to pay taxes on income that I derive from California.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But yeah, I want no part of that mess. It's just you've got some wonderful people out there with just a really bad government, really bad management. But you've got some really, really great people out there. Despite what you read,
So it's nice to come home to Illinois where everything is run so perfectly and our economy is so strong.
It's almost like it's following me. So I was raised in Southern Illinois. I've been a Tennessee resident most of my adult life, but then I go to California. So Illinois, when I was raised here, it was just fabulous. I mean, it was a great booming state. Big Jim was our governor. We had just everything going on. You had a great state legislature. The House has always tended here to be more Democratic and stuff, where the Senate years ago was pretty consistently Republican.
So it's pretty balanced,
yeah,
and low debt. Low taxation.
I mean, here's how bad it was. Remember, we bailed Chrysler out was it the 70s or 80s or something like that? It was 1978 when with the state of Illinois, didn't they loan them like $600 million to Chrysler or something like that?
I don't know a lot about the story, but I remember hearing about it. Yeah.
Now look at how times have turned.
Yeah.
Chrysler's making a few bucks, and
we might need Chrysler to bail us out now.
Yeah, exactly. It's great to be back here though, and the weather's great. Last time I was here was in January. And I remember going out and twice, actually. I was here that one time for your birthday, and
that was January and April.
That was in April, and I had to scrape ice off my car. I was here in the January before, and I had to scrape ice off my car. So today, no ice.
How about that, huh?
What was it? Like Johnny Carson would say, it was so cold here last time I was here that I actually saw Dick Durbin with his hand in his own pocket.
Oh, man.
True story, Ed. True story. Yeah.
Oh, so we've got a guy that's got a voice for radio, and a face for Hollywood. Actually,
oh God, I wish.
Not only he's got a voice, he's a good looking dude, right? Q?
There's not enough Botox or hair transplants on this planet to give me a face for Hollywood. I can tell you that.
Just connect with Urlacher; he can help you out.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, heck, Urlacher, me, man. I went to the same place.
You did,
absolutely.
You got the Botox going too?
Not Botox. I've stayed away from that so far. As you can see, I've avoided that. Right?
Still a good-looking man, right?
But so when we think about, usually we like to go into, where it all started, Kent. So, we want to know more about, what kind of childhood created this crazy dude that we know as Kent Emmons today.
You know what? So, I was born and raised in Southern Illinois, a little town called Mount Carmel, where I was at actually over the weekend, and it's a little town. It used to be, like a lot of Illinois, a very thriving town. It's right on the Indiana-Illinois border near Evansville, Indiana. Mm-hmm. So it's a big oil and gas area, a lot of agricultural, of course, and that kind of stuff. At the time, when Illinois could still employ people, when businesses here could employ people, we had Snap-on Tools was a big one. That's how my mom's side of the family ended up coming there. My my grandfather worked in Kenosha, and then at their headquarters, and then was transferred when my mom was, I think, in high school, freshman or something like that in high school, to Mount Carmel. And so I was raised down there in this little tiny town. My dad grew up, by the way, I was back there last weekend hanging out with my folks. They're just funny as can be. I mean, they're just hilarious. Coincidentally, by the way, Gary, your dad and my dad have the exact same birthday, like same age and same birthday.
I remember. That's right. Yeah. I remember celebrating one day, talking to each other.
But grew up down there. My dad grew up working in his dad's gas station after World War II. They bought a gas station down there, and he grew up doing that. My dad ended up becoming really good friends with a guy that had started a bank down there, and that became his mentor. So he grew up as like me, a mentor kid, like you, a mentor kid, where you didn't necessarily have the college education, but you had the mentorship.
Exactly.
And so he went to work, from the gas station. The guy said, Jack, his name was Jack Emmons, said, Jack, you've got a great personality. He said, would you ever think about working at the bank? Well, I don't know, maybe. So he came up and started working at the bank and became CEO at a pretty young age, and ended up running the bank. I think they sold it in 1989. But, as a small town banker, he always had a big vision, and they grew it actually to be the largest bank in Southern Illinois, largest bank south of Springfield.
What was that bank called?
Security Bank and Trust.
Security Bank and Trust.
And it sold to Old National Bank in Evansville, Indiana. I think it was 1989 or 90, something like that. But I grew up, watching him bank entrepreneurs. And my dad's an entrepreneur too. But I grew up watching him bank these small businesses and some larger businesses too. And I watched him, how he admired these entrepreneurs and how sometimes he would participate with them and watching these things. And as a kid, as I'm watching this, I had my lawn mowing business. So I'd started mowing lawns when I was in 7th grade. So started with, but I'm still watching this, always watching these entrepreneurs grow their businesses down there, oil companies or car dealerships or farmers or, people starting, stores or little manufacturing outfits, stuff like that. So I would mow my yards and just collect the money, keep the money. I remember I bought my first certificate of deposit. It was $1,500, and it was in 78. You want to guess what my interest rate was?
10%.
Hugh, you want to guess?
Well, when I did one when I was in college, it was like less than that. It was like 7 or 8. So I can only imagine probably a little bit higher.
Well, this is back in the good old days of Jimmy Carter, and it was 15.9% for a CD.
Wow.
15. I've actually still got the CD.
Wow.
15. I've got a stack of them, and that particular first one was 15.9%. But anyway, I grew up mowing yards and doing that stuff, and learned, there being an oil and gas business, I learned that, a lot of these entrepreneurs were making money in the oil and gas business. These are kind of wild and crazy guys. So a friend of mine who I just saw this weekend, he's in a nursing home there now. He's a preacher down there, but his side business was leasing oil and gas rights and then turning them, keeping an interest in it, an overriding interest.
Wow.
And, we were visiting one day at a picnic table at the county fair, and we were talking about it, and he said, I can show you how to do it. And I was 17, I think. And so he showed me how to do it. We went out and we leased a piece of ground, and from 80 acres or something like that, leased the mineral rights, and turned it to another operator. They go out, they drill it. You have no real risk.
Yeah.
We kept a 30-second override in it and hit a well and get a few bucks. And you take some of that money, and I'd actually put up a little bit of my yard mowing money to for the first one, and then did that. So I kind of started really loving that business, and through that I started to get to know. Well, I guess to back up a little bit, I would do these dances, these community teen dances at our community swimming pool down there, and I'd hire a band for $50 or $60, and then charge $2 to get in, and got the venue for free. And,
that's right.
You'd pay an off-duty cop down there, $10 or $15 for the night to watch out over the place. And so kind of got this little music bug too. And used a lot of the same bands that I, continuously for 50, like I said, 50, 60 bucks.
Speaking my language. I was a promoter too.
You got something common there.
Go. All right.
Yeah, I'm guessing you're a Chicago guy. Your club promoting was much sexier than my club promoting. There was the local swimming pool.
Yeah.
I mean, the table service there was sneaking a bottle of Southern Comfort into your, back pocket or something. But
a little Mad Dog 2020.
Yeah. Strawberry Boone's Farm Strawberry Hill.
There you go. That's wicked stuff there.
Schlitz malt liquor. That was always one of our favorites too, because they didn't take too much of that to send you over the edge.
Oh wow!
But
Old Milwaukee for $2.50 a case.
Now you're talking my style here. That and PBR was a thing. Now PBR is a thing again.
Oh yeah.
But I remember Past Blue Ribbon was a big thing back then.
How cool is that to be around, to take advantage of a father that was around all these entrepreneurs. Father was entrepreneurial himself when bankers could be back then, right?
Yeah.
To be able to sponge off all these entrepreneurs doing all different things, and for you as a young guy to understand the value of that, right? How fun was that?
It was amazing, and getting to watch these folks, who the good guys were, who the bad guys are, what made the good guys, what made the bad guys, and to watch my mom and dad as a team. It really reminds me a lot of you and Cheryl, how you guys are just so tight. And you take, my dad, who, is great visionary, great marketer, great people guy. This is always the big joke. And then my mom, who is, unless you know her, you don't see how she's got this amazingly big personality if you know her. Otherwise, you would think, just very quiet. But highly organized, highly organized. Everything to the T. I guarantee they've been married almost 60 years. I guarantee you she can tell you where the first nickel is that they made. And she can probably show you the first cancel, everything. So the joke in the community was always that, my dad ran the bank, grew the bank, was known as, actually was the president of the Illinois Bankers Association for a couple of years. So, for the whole state. And he was this well-known banker. Couldn't balance a checkbook. It was life dependent on it. But then you got my mom, So watching them work as an entrepreneurial team was really, 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 really interesting.
Well, so I see here, just based off of what you said, if you can elaborate a little more as far as what you learned through this time, because you had a landscaping business, had an oil business, and you was a promoter. It seems like in those three small businesses.
It wasn't much of an oil business. It was, going out leasing land and stuff. And then I eventually drilled a couple of wells on my own with moderate success.
So I was going to ask, so with that being said, like what were probably some of the things that you've learned internally or just like that kind of helped you even to today, but ultimately back then to kind of create the foundation of entrepreneurship for yourself?
Here was the big thing, and this comes into play, from the beginning all the way through now. The biggest thing I found was networking. And I watched my dad in this little tiny town, Mount Carmel, Illinois, and I would watch him pick up the phone, and he would call anyone to get their business. And I watched him steal business from big banks, actually the bank they eventually sold to. But he would call anybody. He had big clients up here in Chicago. He had Robert P. Gwynn, who became a good family friend. Mr. Gwynn, or not a close family friend, but a great acquaintance, who was the chairman of Sunbeam and Encyclopedia Britannica.
Sure.
He had a couple of big business guys up here that he would lend
he was
to
stealing,
down
so he
there.
was stealing business from anybody.
Well, Northern Trust was their correspondent bank up here, and so he would work. He would make big loans, down there, participate where he could, and then upsell, sell the rest off up here to some of these big banks.
That's cool.
By doing that, he got to know people up here, and then he would originate the loans down there and have them participate back up here. So, but I watched him. He would pick up the phone and call anybody. I remember they were looking at acquiring a bank just north of our little town, and Texaco was the big. They had a big refinery there, little town called Lawrenceville, Illinois. And I remember my dad somehow getting through, I think through maybe Mr. Gwynn or somebody up here, ended up getting a hold of the chairman of Texaco to find out what the longevity, if they were going to keep that thing. And the guy wouldn't comment other than to say, I likely wouldn't buy that bank. But I mean, here's a little, started out as this little tiny, farmtown banker, and he's got this amazing network because he wasn't afraid to pick up the phone.
No fear. That's good.
So
no fear.
Yeah. So if you watch Kent today, I've been around Kent in front of a lot of groups and stuff, and it's fun to watch because this guy lights up the room when he walks in. Big, always, as you see today, right now, huge smile on your face, always like engaged with whoever you're talking to. I don't care if it's the bus boy or it's the the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. Kent is just as engaged with both of those.
Yeah, but Gary, I think all of us as entrepreneurs, and Q, you too, I think to a certain degree we're all that way, and it's because we're curious about the people. We're really, I'm like really curious about, people. I don't, it doesn't make any difference where they are on the
you're right.
economic
the story
spectrum.
The story of that busboy, right?
Yeah.
Or bus girl might be as exciting as the story of that CEO if you really dig into them, right?
Yeah.
Which is really, really fun when you can get to know people like that, right?
It was funny. Monday night, we were in Nashville and had Pence in for a fundraiser down there. And they had a lot of the local, or not local, but the statewide politicians, from Tennessee and stuff like that. And they had this fundraiser out at a barn, at a car barn, beautiful car barn, where they had all these classic cars and stuff like that. So great crowd and all that kind of stuff. You know who the last person to leave was? We were all kind of in the same group. The last person to leave, Marsha Blackburn, who's a fantastic, wonderful senator, she and her husband Chuck. And Marsha's sitting there drinking coffee with the servers and all that, because she's that type of person, like any of us, really interested in people. And here she is, a sitting U.S. senator, and her husband's waiting on her. Chuck and I are out there joking and stuff because she's in there and they're just sitting there talking, and and it has nothing. Those people weren't. It wasn't just because they were constituents. They loved her and she loved them.
That's awesome.
I think you have to do that.
No, and the best networkers are those that are usually first to get there, last to leave, and I see that in you, and it's fun to watch, because again, you're going to meet so many people that you affect. If you can affect their lives just a little bit, or they remember you by something positive, they'll spread the good news about Kent and how cool that Kent guy was, right? Or Marsha.
You know what they say because he was hanging out with Gary. He had to have something going on there.
I could believe that one.
No, but when you look at the relationships that are built after hours, everybody leaves and there's those few people left. I can't, we've sat and talked into the wee hours of the morning, a bunch of times in the times we've been hung out. Because there's so much to talk about. It's like we can sleep anytime. We'll catch up on that sleep, but we need to get through this next conversation.
And think about our evenings that, a lot of this, takes place down in Florida. But think about this, the wide variety of people. I go back and look at the pictures over the years, sitting at that table there in the corner, and the variety of people sitting at that table. And it's always different. Every year it changes out, and every evening, because you have several evenings during it's just an amazing variety. And think about the stuff that we learn. I'm sure they learn a little bit from us too, but the stuff that we learn and the contacts we make and how that spreads your network, opportunities for business, opportunity for public service. There's a lot of different things that you do by networking and just, hanging out and being around.
Absolutely. So when you think about that, learning to network at a young age and all that, it took you into, working until you went to college and
very briefly.
Okay. Talk about that.
College was never like a massive priority for me. My thought was, growing up as a young Republican and being involved in the state student council politics here in Illinois and politics overall. My thought was, okay, I'll go to undergrad, then I'll go to law school, and then I'll run for a state senate seat down at at the time was the 54th state senate seat. I'll do that as soon as I get out of college. But, I started making really good money as an entrepreneur. And so kind of the trade-off with my dad was, because at this time, still had a little bit of oil income and still had all my lawn mowing money in the bank and stuff. And the trade-off I was like, I really want to pursue. I'd met some people in the entertainment business and had started kind of doing some things in the music business, nothing big, but I wanted to pursue it. And so the trade-off my dad and mom was, go to Wabash Valley College, which is one of the great community colleges here in Southern Illinois. Go to Wabash, rack up a few hours, and then head on to, Champaign or Carbondale or somewhere like that. And, I got about 8 months in, and I loved my college experience and was already doing the state senate, the student senate thing there and stuff like that. But I really loved the entrepreneurial aspect. And I kind of felt like, I'd watched my mom and dad, as entrepreneurs and dad in particular, banking entrepreneurs. And I'd watch that. And it's kind of like you, Gary, you grew up like I did too. You're working hard. You had a great role model as a parent watching that entrepreneurialism. And I kind of felt like, I'm sitting here in class in college, and these are great teachers too, but those are things that are so, I know that stuff. And there's other things that I know. There's things I still need to know, but I can take those classes individually, which I've done over the years. And I just didn't feel like that was my path. I kind of felt like my path was I wanted to pursue making money and building a business. And that's what I did.
So the structured learning stuff, basically, you felt wasn't for you, that you could learn as you go and
not my thing.
Outside.
And and I think nowadays it's apparent that that's a really tough thing. You got kids going to college, spending a fortune, coming out with debt. You talk about, you're one of the leaders, actually. The job networks thing that you and Bernie Marcus started. I mean, that's one of those things, or Job Creators Network, where you guys are now working back, or a lot of folks are working back into more entrepreneurial practical training, so that people can actually learn the basics, learn all the fundamentals, and then get out and get into business for themselves, or get into business with an entrepreneur, or be mentored as an employee of an entrepreneur. And you think about the value of that, and they come out of that. We were talking to breakfast this morning. No debt, great practical skills, and all that stuff. My dad, for instance, this was a great lesson. He probably wish he hadn't taught me, but he was already working at the bank. He and my mom had gotten married, and he didn't have his college degree. He had been in the Army for a couple of years, didn't have his college degree, but he was already rising quickly at the bank. But back then, they felt like, you have to have a college degree. So he and mom worked to pay for college, but dad went to college, and he will tell you this is one of the greatest secrets of his. He went to college at night at what's now University of Evansville. It used to be called Evansville College. He went at night, and he took finance and banking courses and things like that. The secret, he says, to his success and rapid rise was the teachers were actual bankers, actual accountants, actual attorneys. Daytime, you get the professors. These are people who are already, vice presidents of banks, presidents,
real world experience in the space.
Real world experience. So he got a couple of things from that. One, he got the real world, from the textbook. There's always a massive difference in textbook and reality. He got that, but he also got contacts. He got amazing contacts.
Sure.
So when he started to rise, he had these contacts all over the tri-state area, way ahead of anybody else.
Cool.
So I kind of felt like that was kind of my thing too, and yours as well. I mean, you grew up watching an entrepreneur and being in an entrepreneurial environment. All of a sudden, that sitting there listening to somebody telling you theoretically how it could work, or you sit there and go, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I want to hear from the horse's mouth.
Yeah. I want to watch it. I want to watch the horse.
Yeah. And that's what Q focuses on with True Mentors on a daily basis, right? Putting entrepreneurs and leaders together with young leaders that want to be strong leaders. And
I've just never been a person to. I always say a lot of people are theory driven. I'm result driven. We're around a lot of well-meaning people who give us opinionated information, but they never did what they're talking about. So, kudos to your dad, and it's good to see that shared experience trickle down to you to get real world experiences around you, because then you get real results.
Yeah, you do, and you never have to. You never have to rely on theory. Theory is always the unknown,
right?
And not that. Being entrepreneurs, we always come across things.
Even though that's the unknown.
Didn't see that one coming. That kind of stuff. But
that hurt.
Yeah, but when you with being an entrepreneur, and if you got a great network of entrepreneurs, if you get in a pinch, or you look like you're heading toward a pinch, or you look at a growth opportunity, but you don't know quite what to do, you can go to real world people and say,
absolutely.
What do you think about this? Have you seen this before?
Man, I know Kent got beat up by this one. I'm going to call him and talk to him about this.
Exactly.
I'm going to avoid this, because I remember what happened to Kent when he made this decision. I'm not making that decision.
Let me tell you something.
It's the shared experiences, right, that are golden.
It is. And can you imagine, if you're facing either a big business challenge or a big business opportunity, and it's risky either way, no matter how you go. Now you're going to call, somebody at the, University of Illinois who's taught out of a textbook for 30 years and probably never even owned a share of a real entrepreneurial startup or something like that. Or are you going to call Gary Rabine? I'm going to call Rabine, because, you've been in the trenches. Us guys have been in the trenches. We've got the battle scars. We've seen it all. No, we haven't seen it all. Hopefully we have lots more to come. But, we've got that realistic, take on stuff.
Yeah, you're gonna call your friend that's from the industry you're thinking of, you're dealing with, or if it's banking, you're dealing with a banking issue in your own business. You're going to talk to a friend of yours that's comes from the banking side that has a lot of experience there to share with you, right? If I'm going to jump into another market across the country in one of the services we provide, same thing. I'm going to find out who in that market do I know that can tell me about the culture of that market, right? So these are all shared experiences that create our success. I can't learn that from a book. I can't learn that new market, the culture of that new market from a book, right? I got to actually go there, understand the people, let these people share with me their experiences on what that culture is about, different than my culture, right? But just what you said. I mean, the growth of our networks really translates into the growth of the success of our own growth in our businesses and personally. Because, man, if we can share experiences with those that have been successful in other industries, other markets, or the challenges we have in front of us, you can't lose, in my opinion.
It's true, and to go back to a point you made a minute ago, you definitely do want to call your people in the area or nationwide that have experience in that area or in that particular area of expertise. Mm-hmm. But something I love to do, and I found this over the years to be even more and more valuable, is ask people that are kind of on the peripheral of it, that aren't like right in the middle of it, because they can give you that 50,000 foot view. Takes you always want to have the 50,000 foot view, but having a third party 50,000 foot view and then deep dive into that way, you get kind of a practical. Oh yeah, I hadn't really thought about that, but if I was thinking about this, a lot of times you miss. What's the old saying? You can't see the forest through the trees.
That's true.
Yeah, a lot of times we live down in the forest, and a lot of times if you ask a couple of people outside the forest, you get some really interesting answers. So.
Like if you're playing football, you're the quarterback, you got the coach on the sideline, but you're talking about the coach from the press box.
It's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. That's it. Good deal.
That's exactly
so after your tough, hard 8 months of college.
By the way, one of them, of course, I've been blessed, to have amazing educators. We had this, great public school system down there. I mean, little county, rural county school system, and that little community college. But one of the greatest lessons I ever learned happened in one afternoon at that community college.
What was that?
And my entire career, my real big, my money career has been media, and media is strictly, taking a message, figuring out how to craft that message, and then getting it out there. Whether you're trying to elect somebody or whether you're trying to sell a product, which is what we do. We do a lot of television and radio and now digital and stuff like that, where you have to craft messages. I've always been a big consumer of media. Even as a kid, I used to read the newspaper, and Dad would have the Wall Street Journal, and I'd read that. Didn't understand a lot of it, but I'd read it. But I was sitting out there at community college one day, and I was trying to write a report. And I had this teacher, Della Marie Yates, and it seemed like she was 100 at the time. She actually just passed away about 5 years ago at 99 or 98, something like that. But she was just great, just one of these fabulous, ballsy Methodist women. I mean, she was just fantastic. And I was really stuck trying to write this thing, and I was never a very good writer when I was a kid. When I was in class where you'd have to write a report or whatever,
creative writing.
Yeah. Well, even just having to write it, I was never any good at it, and I was stuck on I can't think what the topic was. And she said, "Are you having a problem?" I said, "Yeah." And I told her what the deal was. She said, "You're having trouble writing?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "How can you have trouble writing?" I said, "Well, what do you mean?" She goes, "I know you like to talk." She goes, "I hear you." She goes, "If you can talk," she goes, you can write. And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She said, "You know what? Just start, and she, whatever the subject was, she said, "What do you know about this?" And she said, "Just tell me." Mm-hmm. And I started telling her, and she goes, "Okay, great." And then she said, "Now just write it down." And see, any time from now on, just write it down as you would, talk it in your head and write it down. And don't worry about how it sounds or the semantic. Don't worry about that. Just write it down. You can go back and correct it later. Just write it down. I blew through, a 10-page report in a matter of like an hour. Of course, it's long before you had laptops to do them. Blew through that, and then all of a sudden, writing became this amazing thing, writing and messaging and stuff like that. And that's really why I enjoy media so much. I love crafting messages.
It all started there with that one conversation that you had with you. Said,
one conversation.
Chill out, dude. Just talk on paper.
Yeah,
I mean,
my big mouth had paid off.
Use
at
that
one
big
point.
mouth of yours.
Exactly, it paid off for one afternoon.
But shut it, and just big mouth has to work in your brain.
Exactly,
and you're good.
Inner conversation.
That's right.
That's funny. So after college, what was next?
Well, I was was already in the dabble in the entertainment business a little bit, and I had some oil checks coming in, and I mowed yards up until into college too. And I say college as though I've graduated Harvard up into my 6 months of college. But I was down on spring break in 1985 in a bar that I was not old enough to be in down in Florida, and ran across this guy who had a moderately okay hit record called Key Largo. It was a guy by the name of Bertie Higgins. And, he was a great guy, funny as can be, owned this bar. And we hit it off. And he was in the music business. He'd been a drummer for Tommy Rowe and the Romans. Like I said, had this song that had done relatively well, and I'd heard it on the radio for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. And so we started hitting it off, and he was a funny dude. And he ended up coming up and actually looking at oil stuff, and he had a few bucks. And so from him, I got to know a lot of folks in the record business, back then. And when in 1986, the price of oil went from like $30 down to like $8, and went to nothing. And the oil checks were not there. I didn't have a lot of debt, but I had enough that it worried me. And he said, "Why don't you come and work with me?" And I said, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, why don't you come work with me?" He goes, "I haven't had a manager in forever." He goes, "I'm doing a lot of road dates. I don't know. I know nothing about money. I know nothing about promoting." So I literally, a teenager, kind of started managing him. Didn't know what I was doing. Matter of fact, if you ever talk with him, he'll tell you the story. He's still one of my best, dearest buddies. He said, "I literally almost ran off the road and killed us both at one point." And I said, "When was that?" And he goes, "That's when we were driving between Atlanta and Nashville, and I already signed you as my manager, and you looked up at me and you said, 'Bertie, can you explain the difference, exactly what the difference is between a manager and a producer?'" He said, "I about drove the van off the road."
After he hired you.
After he hired me. But we had a great run together, and and started with him, and started the music publishing company.
How old was Bernie? And you were like 19 years old at the time.
I was 1985, so I would have been 19, and so Bertie would have been 35 or 36. He just turned 73, so yeah. And
he was a young guy with
I mean, for the music business he was probably an old guy, but I was a young guy. And but we had a lot of fun, and we did some things that were interesting. He was old enough that no record label would really give him any heat because he hadn't had a hit for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. And he was a tropical singer, kind of a he always calls himself the Walmart Jimmy Buffett, what I mean? The igloo cooler of Jimmy Buffett's. But anyway, so we got creative, and we started doing, we did an island hopping tour one time, and we did all these interesting things that were, great money things, but didn't require a big national touring company because we couldn't have gotten one. Didn't require a record label because we really couldn't get the backing of one. We would play these cool beach venues like the Floribama. Have you guys ever been to the Floribama?
No.
It's on the Alabama, great club. A buddy of mine, Joe Gilchrist, owns it down there. He still has it. It's right on the Florida-Alabama state line on the beach.
Okay.
Known for its annual interstate mullet toss. So you go down there, you drink a whole lot of cheap beer, and you take mullets, the fish, and there's a line drawn in sand on the state line, and it's like a discus. You how far can you throw the mullet?
I was thinking you're throwing these guys with these hillbilly guys.
Well, there was a lot of them, and there still are to this day. I guarantee you.
So you got kind of a combination, mullet squared going on down there.
Dude, I hadn't even thought about it. You're right though.
Yeah, mullet squared.
To this day, I bet that's one of the greatest collection of people with mullets on the planet. But it's this club's been there, the place has been there forever and ever and ever. It's always packed out. It's been taken out since I've known Joe. It's been taken out by I think 3 hurricanes and totally rebuilt. And remember back when we first went there, back in I think 1985 was probably the first time I walked in that place. Literally the building is on the state line. The front door Half the front door was in Alabama, half was in Florida, and they had these two payphones, one on this side, one on that side. One was in Alabama, and so people would come in there and they would take pictures of themselves making long distance phone calls to themselves. Now you tell me that's not redneck, and I was one of them that did. I was one of the first ones in line to do it. So like, I got to do that too.
Well, I go
take
back
a Polaroid picture.
And I go back to '85. That was about one of the last years I sported my mullet. I got married that year, but I remember I had a mullet that I had a king mullet, and before that, and probably 82, 3, 4. I had this big flat top.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah, I had a flat top and the mullet in the back. So I had business up on top, and what do they call that? How do they say that?
Party in the front.
Well, I think it was more party in the back. A little business up front and party in the back I had going on. But then by the time I got married, Cheryl had gotten that tamed a little more, but still had the mullet in '85.
Did Cheryl make you cut it off before the wedding pictures, or did you just hide it?
No, she did. It was still going on, but she could take pictures without seeing it too much.
Oh my God!
But then I messed everything up, and I grew the first and only mustache I've had in my life for our wedding day.
Really?
Oh, man.
I never had a mustache only in my life except that time.
Did you have one of those ones that came with down like that?
No, not a Fu Manchu.
No?
This is more of this is more like a Miami Vice like mustache.
Gotcha. Okay. Did you have the glasses?
Didn't have. I had a members only jacket though.
Oh, okay. All right.
Very Tom Selleck of you.
But anyway, just think of '85 for sure. That on the beach, that when you were there at Florida, what do you call Floribama?
The Floribama.
Floribama,
yep.
Definitely mullet squared. You got the mullets in the water and the mullets on the beach.
Yeah.
I like it.
Those venues like that, of course, they're still a lot of fun. But I mean, those places like that are so laid back, and you don't know if you're talking to a bazillionaire next door to you or just some redneck who's about to fall off the bar stool, or a combination of both. And which is
that's even better.
And you know how you and I are kind of the same way. I'm assuming you're the same way too. Those kind of joints are the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, those talk about great entrepreneurs. Those guys make money hand over fist.
Because
they don't have to put it. It doesn't have to be fancy. Nothing. It's nothing great in there. It's just everybody going and having
just
a good
the
time.
environment. The environment helps out with it, and once you get it, and people know about it, they hear the buzz of it. It kind of does its own thing. You all having all of this fun. I'm just realizing I was 3 months old when y'all are talking.
I don't even want to hear it. Don't even want to hear it, dude.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't. 85. I was just born. So.
Okay, so then from there, okay, you got your helping.
So I got
buddy.
Birdie, and so I got Birdie having fun with that, and that went on for quite some time. And I picked up some other acts, and I became affiliated with Lowry Music in Atlanta. Bill Lowry, and Bill, really, really interesting guy, great guy. Passed away about 10, 12 years ago, but he became one of my great mentors on the entertainment side, and that's what took me full time out of the the Midwest and down to Atlanta, and kind of growing this little music publishing company and growing a little management company. And we found some great acts. We found Edwin McCain. We found him down in Edwin's had the name you may not recognize, but all the music you'll recognize. If you Google it and listen to the music, you'll know.
Let's sing a couple of them.
I'll Be is a great big one.
One
of the I'll be da 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 da. Just Google. I don't want to, dude. I don't want to crash everybody's iPhone.
Okay, come on, give us one.
Cracking.
Give us another one we might have heard.
Well, I'll be it. Can you not? No, nothing. I'm still trying to get this one out for you so I can Anyway, but
many good, great ones.
Yeah, he had I don't know 8 or 10 top 10 hits, and he's just a great guy. And Birdie and I had been down playing a golf tournament down in Hilton Head, and I met this crazy as hell DJ down there, this lady. Her name was Carol Kavanaugh, and she ran a radio station. It was a celebrity golf tournament. Matter of fact, in our foursome that particular weekend, Leslie Nielsen, remember him, the funny in the Naked Gun movies?
Yeah, he's awesome.
And so anyway, so I meet this DJ down. She's funny as can be, and somebody gets in this plastic shot glass throwing thing across the bar, and she had having to wing me in the head with them. Well, that's how we met. Anyway, she finds this guy Edwin. She calls me up. He kept calling me in Atlanta. You got to come and see this guy. You got to come and see this guy. Finally, drove over to Hilton Head for the weekend, found this guy, and signed him to the publishing company, and found him some good, folks that could help manage, and kind of grew the company a little bit like that. And then, just weird networking things.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so the music publishing business was pretty good, and the music management side was really good. And I found this little niche, though, as traveling around and doing these markets. Bertie and I had been over to Branson, Missouri, and so we found this little niche, or I found what I felt was a little niche in there. We started buying some little properties in Branson, Missouri, back when it was just starting to come on as a kind of a cool tourist destination. But you had this amazing. Have you guys been to Branson, by the way?
I have.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I found this market to be so enchanting because it's in the middle of nowhere, yet there's all this activity. At the time, I think there was 5 million tourists a year coming. Now there's about 7.5 or so coming. And I'd been there, been doing quite a bit of business, helping some of those acts that are there get their deals done and stuff. And there were some bigger acts that were coming in that were
a lot of country acts, right?
A lot of country acts, like a lot of my buddies. So Mickey Gilley, Roy Clark. Roy passed away. Johnny Lee. Of course, Mel Tillis was already there. Mel is actually who kind of brought us in there. We helped structure a deal, for Doc Severinsen and some different folks like that, and helped structure a lot of these different deals down there. Doc, that was a funny story too. Doc ended up making a fortune on the deal, and they never opened the theater. The people that put up the money, great family, booked him, put the money up, big billionaire family out of Texas, and then the family trust got into a lawsuit with each other. And they called and they just told Doc, we're just going to give you the money. Doc didn't. He goes, well, no, I'll just give it back to you. They said, no, we're just going to release it to you. Doc's like, are you serious? He was like, no, you don't need to do that. But anyway, some wild deals going on. Anyway, so I'm down there learning that market a little bit, and then also learning the similar markets like Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And I had been to Orlando as well, and I noticed in Orlando, this is kind of where the building value of my life kind of took off, like building some actual wealth. But in Orlando, they had this little tourist radio thing that was strictly for the Disney parks. I think they called it Disney Park Radio, or it wasn't Disney Radio, that kids network that you see out there. It was like Disney Park Radio or something. And you tuned to I think it was an expanded band, like 1660 AM or 1610 AM. And it was about a 20-minute loop of, hey, welcome to Disney parks. And it was only in the parking lots of the Disney parks. And at the time, there were only, 2 or 3 Disney parks. Yeah. And I think they got 5. But I'm listening to this, and like I said, 20 minutes of welcome to Disney parks, and da-da-da, today we've got this going on and that going on, and stop by the magic shop on the main street, or whatever it may be. Yeah. All these little ads and kind of fun. You could tell it was canned and really, really, just,
kind of dry.
It was dry, but, but I thought, wow, that's really interesting. So a friend of mine, I saw at Christmas that following year, and I said, that's a really interesting thing. I said, did anybody listen to that? He goes, everyone listens to it. And I'm like, really? He goes, well, think about it. He goes, people are coming in there. They're spending a fortune on their vacation. They're coming in. They want to know everything that's going on, and they're stuck in traffic out there in the parking lot. They want to hear it. So it's a 20-minute loop, and he kind of told me how they did it. I said, wow, that's really interesting. So I started thinking, you know what? This could be an interesting thing for a market like Branson, Missouri. The only difference is Branson is a massive market with a whole bunch of little businesses, where Disney is a massive market with just itself. And then there's some other little side businesses, but Disney was big enough that it was its own little thing. So I thought, how interesting would it be if I had to send you over the old brochures on this stuff. I
love it.
So I thought, how interesting would it be to actually buy a radio station that covered a good part of that area, put up a bunch of billboards, and what I did is I took, if you say it's a circle like this, I chopped it into 60 one-minute blocks. So that 1 hour. So that 1 hour is a circle. So then, what I'll do is I'll make it sound live. We use what was called a selector system, where you could actually make stuff sound live, so it would switch. The same hour never sounded the same. I'll put 45 1-minute commercials in it, and I'll sell those off for the month. So you buy it by the month, and I'll put some comedy things in there and some other elements, like we could put current weather in and different things like that. The weather would just fire off, automated weather from AccuWeather. And I'll make it sound live and entertaining. I put a lot of comedy in it. And I think people would listen to this. So I went out, I knew a lot of people in Branson. So I went. I wish I had my old sales package here for this because it was just the dumbest looking thing ever. But I sold 45 1-minute spots for $1,500 a month each.
Wow.
So you paid $1,500 a month, and you were on at least once an hour. And we sold it. Yeah, it was really good. And we paid $130,000 for the radio station. The radio station was based in Springfield, Missouri. Springfield was because 85% of the traffic that came into Branson came through Springfield. So I had billboards up coming in. The radio station reached about 45 minutes outside of Springfield. So I had billboards coming in from where you would come in from Kansas City, 45 minutes north of Springfield, 45 minutes north. So, just east of Joplin, west of Lebanon, Missouri. Everyone piled into Springfield, which, by the way, Bass Pro was there. They were a great advertiser. Johnny Morris, who I just love that. He and his sister Carol, I love those guys. And they would come into Springfield and then drop down to Branson. So I had them in the car for about an hour and a half or 2 hours. I also knew that by the time they got into Branson, they wouldn't be listening to this stuff. It would be, then they're looking and, so anyway, I thought, that could be a really very inexpensive, very, very inexpensive way for attractions to advertise. And the fact that, we already have some empirical data, not great data, but talking to some of the Disney people down there about the tune-in rates of that particular radio station, I thought, what? It's not a huge risk. Like I said, I paid $130,000 for the radio station, and the billboards, I don't know, maybe $15,000 a month or something like that.
For all of them.
And for all of them, yeah. Yeah, they were, between $150 and $450 for the really good ones, and a month. And so we did that and went out. Initially the first couple of months, it was a little tougher sell because it's, no one's ever done that before. Yeah. And it's like, we haven't heard that. And it's like, no duh.
That's why I'm doing it.
So, yeah, that's why I'm doing it here, dude. So anyway, but I got, 20 people right out of the box. Ones that were friends of mine, like, Gilly, Jim Stafford, some local restaurants. So I found this to be a really interesting pitch, one, to kind of hone the pitch, but two, something that I thought could be effective, and it turned out it was. So what we did, programming.
So this radio station bought for $130,000. You at this point you got a $800 to $1 million a year income revenues business.
Yeah.
With $200,000 of marketing and billboards a year, right?
Yeah, and we also did like rack cards and brochures and things like that. So, but the margins were just sinfully fat.
Were you able to do any more than that? So on that, revenues more than that $1 million or so.
So here's what we did.
What other stuff? Yeah.
Here is. I mean, this is literally where stuff took off. So then there's this guy up there. He's dead now. I really liked him as a character. Who was a timeshare guy, an old-fashioned timeshare guy.
Sure.
And timeshare, a lot of the big part of their business is what they call OPCs, or people that are coming into town. We've all been there, right? You go to Branson, you go to Orlando, you go to any of these markets, and hey, you want some free tickets? Vegas, same thing. Want some free tickets? Just need 90 minutes of your time. And he said, you know what? He said, I'd like to buy some ads on your radio station. I said, what do you want to do? He said, we have the timeshare resort and this and that, and maybe we could draw some people in with it. And so I started thinking about it. I said, let's think about this for a minute. Rather than buy the ads, how about if we partner with find a location up somewhere between Springfield and Branson, and every 15 seconds or every 10 or 15 minutes, we put an ad in. I'll send you some of these, Gary. They are just cheesy, but it's the greatest thing ever. And hey, folks, you're on your way to Branson. Matter of fact, I can almost repeat the commercial.
Go ahead, do it.
Hey, folks, you're on your way to Branson. You want to make sure you got your best hotel rates, your cabins, your tickets, your shows, attractions, all that kind of stuff. Stop at the Branson Ticket Outlet and Welcome Center. It's conveniently located on your way, between Springfield and Branson on Highway 65 at this exit. Blah blah blah. Stop in here. We started doing that, and people were blowing in. They're just coming in. We offered free soft drinks, coffee, and eventually some other stuff. But
it's some stuff you can't talk about.
Not that kind of stuff. Well, I mean, for the really hard customers, we would. But those are really difficult to get them over the edge, to get them signed up. We would take them to the back room. But we offered these, stuff like that. Well, families would come in. They had a great time. The timeshare company staffed it really well with very friendly people, and they would book hundreds of tours a month out of it, and we got paid by the tour.
Wow.
Cool.
So now
So you took a little risk with them, but the reward was upside reward was
it was
crazy.
airtime risk, and you know, we had some avail, so it worked. Yeah. And so then this and that went on for a year or two. This particular timeshare guy got into some financial stuff and ended up partnering with somebody else or selling. So we hooked up with another guy who's become one of my dearest friends, also a great mentor. And this is going back to 1994 now or something like that.
Okay.
A guy by the name of CJ Permy down in Branson. Same thing. Timeshare guy.
It sounds like we go to Branson. This guy could hook us up. Real entertainment.
You will love. You know, if you go to Branson, we'll have a great time.
I've been there once. We had a lot of fun, and I love the lakes down there and all that. So we're going to do it again, and I'm going to be calling on my buddy.
Table Rock Lake is one of the greatest lakes awesome, in the Midwest. I mean, because it gets nice and warm in the winter. I mean, in the summer it gets nice and warm. It's beautiful. It's a Corps of Engineers.
There's also
lake.
Bull Shoals.
Bull Shoals is fantastic.
That's the long lake that goes all the way in Arkansas, right?
Well, they both are. So Table Rock it's a horseshoe. It starts in Arkansas. It's where they dammed up the White River. Starts in Arkansas, goes up into Missouri, and then back down to Arkansas again.
Yeah.
So
it's cool.
So and it's a beautiful area.
Waters, cliff diving all over the place.
You can see your feet. Aubrey, my 12-year-old and I, we were down just would have been in July, I guess. Right before 4th of July, we were down, hanging out in the lake, and it's just
it is beautiful,
gorgeous.